On December 21, 1939, a Finnish farmer the press called the White Death broke his own record: 25 Soviet soldiers killed in a single day. At that moment, Finland was still less than a month into the Winter War against Stalin's Red Army. The newspapers called it a Christmas gift to the Finnish people. He would go on to serve just 98 days before a Soviet bullet took him out of action. But in that short time, he racked up a number that made him the deadliest sniper in history: 542, if you believe the official tally. Simo Häyhä wasn't some cartoon superhero, just a small farmer camouflaged in white, lying out in -4 to -40 degrees Fahrenheit, picking off Soviet soldiers one at a time with a basic iron-sighted rifle. His reputation alone was enough to rattle Soviet soldiers, who gave him the name White Death. When he was 17, Simo joined the Civil Guard, a Finnish volunteer militia. He was a natural marksman, a hunter, and a trapper, and started winning local shooting contests. Prizes were usually just a spoon, but you can still see some of those on display at the museum in his hometown. Simo always said the Civil Guard's discipline and weapons training is what let the Finns hold out against Stalin's Red Army. The Guard trained a lot, and the men knew their weapons, he explained. He finished his mandatory military service at 19, then returned to civilian life until November 30th, 1939, when the Winter War broke out after a Soviet false flag shelling at the border. The Soviets, thinking they'd roll right over Finland, instead ran into an army that knew how to survive the winter. They were unorganized, undersupplied, and outmatched by sheer grit. Simo served in 6th Company of Infantry Regiment 34 at Kolla, a crucial front. His commanding officer was Lieutenant Arne Juutalainen, a tough, disciplined veteran who earned the nickname the Terror of Morocco after serving in the French Foreign Legion. Juutalainen's motto to his men was simple: hit until the head comes off. Simo started out running dangerous missions, including cutting phone lines under machine gun fire. But Juutalainen soon realized just how good he was with a rifle and made him a sniper, sending him on special assignments. The Finnish army was chronically short on supplies. Some soldiers got little more than a rifle and a cockade ribbon. Simo always used his own Model 2830 rifle, the Spitz. No scope, just iron sights. He explained he didn't like scopes anyway, since they'd force him to raise his head and risk getting spotted. Simo aimed for center mass, not the head, and typically carried 50 to 60 rounds. He sometimes packed grenades in case anyone got too close, though it's unclear if he ever actually used them. He was incredibly fast. He once reloaded and fired 16 accurate shots in a minute with his bolt-action rifle. He kept his sights permanently set for 150 meters, which was the most common fighting distance, and was absolutely obsessive about cleaning and maintaining his weapon. Preparation was everything. He'd scout his firing position a day in advance, watching enemy movements, memorizing the terrain. At night, he'd sneak into place, always preferring natural cover over building anything artificial. If he saw any new mounds or snow on the enemy's side, he knew they were up to something. Once in position, Simo would pack down and wet the snow in front of him to keep his muzzle blast from kicking up powder. One stray puff of snow could give him away. He'd even put snow in his mouth so his breath wouldn't steam in the cold air and betray his position. And he'd bring sugar or rye crisp to eat silently, to keep his energy up for hours of waiting. They never saw him. Thus, they had no warning when his carefully aimed bullet left the muzzle of his rifle. Compared to Simo, the Soviets were practically advertising themselves. Poor camouflage, and they used scopes that forced them to raise their heads above the snow. Simo could stay flat, hidden in a shallow foxhole. You couldn't tell it apart with the naked eye. Sometimes he'd wait hours just for a single shot. By the day he set his daily record, 25 confirmed kills, he had already shot dead 100 men. Soviet troops were terrified of this invisible sniper. They called him Belaya Smert, the White Death. Simo was once asked if it was true the Soviets put a price on his head. He only heard that rumor after he was wounded and hospitalized, but he remembered a time when the Soviets shelled his position with 50 rounds. All he got was dirt in his face. The Soviets believed Finnish snipers were shooting from trees and spread stories that if you heard a cuckoo in the forest, another Russian would die. Some of it was probably propaganda. There's some debate over whether White Death referred to Simo specifically or to Finnish snipers in general. The press picked up the story after February 17, 1940, when Simo was awarded a custom-made rifle for his exploits at Kola. That was when he became a national symbol. He got medals, gifts from admirers, mittens, a pocket watch. His own family found out about his fame when they heard about the rifle ceremony on the radio. He'd never mentioned it in his letters home. Even his biographer, Tapio Saarelainen, who interviewed Simo extensively, didn't know he'd written a 20-page secret memoir about the war until it surfaced in 2017. In it, Simo wrote, "During my entire time in the war, I shot about 500 Russians." He called it his list of sins. Simo's service ended on March 6, 1940, in the Ulasmainen forest. A Russian soldier fired an explosive bullet that blew out his left cheek and shattered his jaw. Simo later said, "The brain still worked, but I couldn't move any part of my body at all." Medics put him on a sledge, but he had to turn himself over so he wouldn't drown in his own blood. He was in a coma for a week, woke up on March 13th, the very day the Winter War ended. At first, rumors said he'd died. Newspapers even published his death notice. Simo kept a clipping of the article and thought it was funny. Finland lost 11% of its territory in the peace deal with the Soviets, including Simo's family's land. This is the backdrop for the Sisu films. In Sisu, Road to Revenge, the main character hauls his house piece by piece from Soviet-occupied Karelia across the new Finnish border, beating up Soviet troops along the way. When war broke out again in 1941, Simo wasn't allowed to return to the front. He went back to farming, never tried to trade on his reputation, and lived a quiet life. He died in 2002 at the age of 96, still humble. A year before he died, he said, "I did what I was told as well as I could. Finland would not have survived if others had not done the same."